paperback and e-readers this March. John Haynes, the man with nothing to lose. The man who rules the world runs into the irresistible force of a man with nothing to lose in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes series adventure. Get the regular and variant cover editions of John Haynes, the man with nothing to lose this March. Musty, dusty Jussie Smollett has been indicted one more again for charges of filing a false police report as related to an alleged 2019 incident where he said he was the victim of a hate crime, but after an investigation by the police department, it was found that your musty, dusty Jussie Smollett had staged the incident in an effort to make himself become a victim that people would sympathize for, and in an effort to try to get more money out of the producers of the show Empire, because he thought he was not being paid enough, because he was only being paid $65,000 an episode. Now, your musty, dusty Jussie Smollett was able to avoid getting any charges as related to filing that false police report because the prosecutor at the time, Kim Fox, decided to drop all of the charges that were originally filed as related to him filing that false police report. However, the police union, after making numerous complaints, decided to bring in a special prosecutor, and this special prosecutor has managed to get new charges filed as related to musty, dusty Jussie Smollett filing this false police report, and they've taken those charges to a grand jury who has indicted the former Empire star for filing those false police reports and staging that incident where he said he was the victim of a hate crime. Now, your musty, dusty Jussie Smollett thought he, again, was going to get away scot-free because Kim Fox was going to give him a pass, but many in the police department thought it would be unfair for your musty, dusty Jussie Smollett to get off by using police time and effort to go out here and look for an individual in a crime that never happened. And they thought it wasn't fair that your musty, dusty Jussie Smollett was going to get a pass for creating this marketing stunt, this controversy, and all of this polarization that went on. And again, your musty, dusty Jussie Smollett never thought once about any of his actions. And again, he was just these actions that he participated in were extremely egregious when you think about them. Because your musty, dusty Jussie Smollett didn't understand how this type of behavior that he was participating in was going to affect other black people. Now, your musty, dusty Jussie Smollett, he said he was the victim of this hate crime where bleach was supposedly poured on him and a noose was wrapped around his neck in 2 a.m. in the middle of downtown Chicago. And a lot of people were getting upset and a lot of people were getting polarized as a result of this until people started taking a critical examination of the evidence and the timeline, where you could easily see that there was holes in musty, dusty Jussie Smollett's story. And the holes started being poked into the story when Jussie Smollett said that he was going to go out at 2 a.m. to a Subway by himself, and he said he was going to go out on 2 a.m. by himself after getting some supposed death threat back in Hollywood, where he had gotten this powder in the mail. Now that was quite troubling to me, because again, anybody who had received a death threat days before in the mail, this individual would not be thinking about going outside at 2 a.m. by themselves. Because if you've received a death threat from someone in the mail, the first thing you would do is go to the FBI and have them look into it. But your musty, dusty Jussie Smollett did not want the FBI to look into the matter. And again, that was a red flag for me as related to Musty, Dusty, Jussie Smollett's story, because he's sitting there, he's gotten this death threat, he's gotten this powder in the mail, but he's not going to want law enforcement to try to find this individual to bring them to justice. No, he's going to get on a plane and go to Chicago to go do some publicity work. And then as he's going home, he's talking about going out at 2 a.m. in the middle of the night to go get a sandwich. Again, more questionable actions that don't fit the pattern of an individual who has just received a death threat in the mail in Los Angeles, but he's going to go to fly to Chicago, and he's going to go out at 2 a.m., not bringing extra security with him to ensure his safety. No, he's going to go out alone at 2 a.m. and expect to, with a death threat over him, and he's going out by himself. Again, questionable behavior that does not fit within the pattern of someone who just received a death threat. But your musty, dusty Jussie Smollett wanted us to believe that story, and then he wanted us to believe that he was attacked by these individuals who supposedly beat him up, poured bleach all over him, and then put a noose around his neck. And he wanted us to believe that story, and he wanted that story to gain traction in the papers so he could gain sympathy from the public, from the attention he was receiving, and then he wanted to use that as leverage to go to his producers in an effort to get a raise in his salary of $65,000 an episode. Now, when I look at that behavior, it is extremely selfish, it is extremely narcissistic, and it is extremely reprehensible, because this individual was willing to get black people polarized and emotional about an incident of a hate crime, and he didn't care about the people around him being polarized by these actions. It was all about him getting this raise and him getting this publicity for himself. And that just shows the complete lack of ethics that your mussy, dusty Jussie Smollett had, that he was willing to put the safety of other black people at risk, all to receive his attention and his raise on that TV show. And it just, again, shows me what a monster your Jussie Smollett is, because he didn't care about the health or safety of any other black person or any other alphabet person who would have wanted to rally for his cause. It was all about him staging this incident and, again, manipulating people's feelings, all because he wanted a raise in salary. And again, it just shows how absolutely reprehensible your Jussie Smollett's behavior truly was. But what was even more reprehensible was the behavior of your district attorney, Kim Foxx, who decided to not drop all the charges as related to Mussy, Dusty, Jussie Smollett, an individual who perpetrated a phony crime against himself and staged this incident on the coldest day in Chicago, and wanted to, again, polarize people, get people riled up, and she's going to drop all of the charges as related to this. Police officers have spent hours investigating this crime. People have gotten heated and polarized, and she drops the charges, all because your musty, dusty Jussie Smollett was a alleged celebrity. And that was completely unethical on her point, because that's giving your Jussie Smollett a pass for participating in irresponsible, reckless, and egregious behavior, all because he's a so-called celebrity. And that, again, shows clear bias on her part, because your Jussie Smollett could have put people in the public at risk with his irresponsible reckless and egregious behavior, where he sat down and staged and choreographed this whole stunt where he made it look like a hate crime transpired back in Los Angeles with that phony death threat and then that phony so-called attack on him. He went out here and put people's lives at risk and wasted police officers' time by going out here and having them go on a wild goose chase trying to look for some supposed racist whites who had beat him up, when in actuality he had hired two black people, Africans, to participate in this criminal activity. And I don't mean ADOS black people. He hired some Africans, and he hired them to go out here and help stage this incident, and again showed us all what a reprehensible human being your Mussy, Dusty Jussie Smollett is, because he was willing to again fan the flames of racial tensions, polarize people racially, have people going back and forth racially, and that again is something that only an extremely egregious human being would do, all because he wanted to try to again get a raise for himself on a show that was practically dying in the ratings as it stood, because Empire was already teetering on cancellation. And thanks to Mussy, Dusty Jussie Smollett, your Empire wound up getting canceled last year. Again, all because your Mussy, Dusty Jussie Smollett wanted to go out here and get attention for himself. He wound up creating this controversy, and then he wound up getting all of his cast members put out of a job, because Fox might have, while the show was teetering on the brink in terms of ratings, Fox usually doesn't cancel anything until it's run completely into the ground. But thanks to Jussie Smollett and his controversy, he cost all of those people in that production company their jobs. He cost everybody an ability to go to work, and now he is going to be indicted by a special prosecutor for his extremely egregious behaviors, because your Jussie Smollett thought he could evade justice because he had corrupt DA Kim Foxx in his pocket. But what happened was the police union and many people in the public, they demanded that this Jussie Smollett be brought to justice because his behaviors were so completely egregious. He needed to be held accountable for them, because for your Jussie Smollett to go out here and stage that type of incident, which could have led to people getting so upset and polarized that it could have led to some other incidents as related to it, and then police officers having to investigate this whole case, and then having to provide extra security for an event that didn't happen, or having to deal with incidents as related to this incident. This, again, all because Jussie Smollett wanted to make extra money. This was something that, again, he needs to be punished for, because when people file false police reports, they take time and resources away from law enforcement dealing with actual crimes. And when people like Jussie Smollett use race to abuse the criminal justice system, they need to be prosecuted and punished to the full extent of the law, because for him to go out here and say that he was attacked by your white racist is the same type of action that Susan Smith participated in many years ago, when she said a big black man had murdered her children, and then she had actually gone out here and murdered her own children. So when I look at both of those incidents, again, these people filed false reports, and again, your Jussie Smollett filed that report in order to get, again, attention for himself, and then your Susan Smith filed it to get attention away from herself. But your Jussie Smollett, he showed how unethical he was, because he was looking to try to polarize people based on race in order to get attention. And that attention he wanted to get, again, was so he could get more money out of Hollywood, because he didn't have the courage to go out here and ask Lee Daniels, his producer, for that raise that he wanted. Instead, he wanted to set up and stage this stunt in order to get this attention. And your musty, dusty Jussie Smollett, again, he needs to be punished to the full extent of the law, because what he did could have put black people's lives at risk, could have put black people's safety at risk, and it could have put black people's credibility at risk, because when black people become victims of violent hate crimes by white racists and white nationalists, it makes it harder for us to go out here and be able to file those kind of reports when you have people like Jussie Smollett abusing the system and abusing the criminal justice system and using it as a way to further his career, instead of trying to use a criminal justice system to get justice in cases of race matters and as related to incidents where hate crimes are actually committed. Because when guys like Jussie Smollett go out here and tell a lie like that, it not only affects him, it affects other black people, and it makes it just that much harder for us to get justice in a justice system where people like Bill Cosby can't get justice because of all the white supremacy in the system. And when people like Jussie Smollett tell lies, it makes those white supremacists believe that everything that they say about black people is true. If you'd like to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. And if you want to try some of my SJS Direct publications, you may do so by clicking the link to Amazon.com. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Coming to paperback and e-readers this April, ISIS, the main event. It's carnage inside of a steel cage as the goddess next door steps in the squared circle against the beast from the falls in this all-new ISIS series adventure. Get ISIS, the main event this April.